I spoke to Israel's ambassador to India, Ruben Azar, earlier today about who won this war. Did Israel win it? Did Iran win it? Iran is celebrating. They say we won it. Israel is celebrating. You heard Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying that they degraded Iran's facilities, their nuclear facilities and their missile launching capabilities. What happens next in West Asia? Let's cut across and listen in to excerpts of that conversation. And joining me now with the latest is Israel's ambassador to India, Ambassador Ruben Azar. Ambassador, welcome on India Today. Was Israel, Ambassador, able to achieve its war aims before the declaration of ceasefire?
Absolutely, Gaurav. We have removed two existential threats on the existence of our state. One was the nuclear weapons program of Iran that was obliterated, and the second was the ballistic missile program that was also decimated. And by that, we have achieved the goals that we have set in 12 days. This has been an effort of decades that the Iranians have been putting in order to create the threats, and they have been removed swiftly.
Ambassador, Israel claims it's met its war aims. You say so. Iran claims it won the war. In fact, you must have seen victory celebrations on the streets of Tehran yesterday, where they claim they've defeated not just Israel, but also the United States of America. And there are pictures on the streets of Tehran with Donald Trump on his knees bending before Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. What do you make of Tehran's celebrations?
But clearly, they're trying to downplay what happened, and if they think this is a victory, so if that fits them, that's okay with them.
Okay. And how would you respond to reports that suggest that Iran was able to remove the stockpile of its enriched uranium before the US strikes at Fordo, Natanz and Isfahan, and that Israel had to go again and bomb Fordo because the aim wasn't achieved initially?
The aim was achieved, Gaurav, and I'll explain why. Although the Iranians might have, different amounts of stockpiles of enriched uranium, what Israel has done, it has removed many of the essential parts that are needed to build a nuclear weapon. We have taken the scientists that were building the weapon. We have taken out the conversion site that is needed in order to turn the fissile material into the metal that is put on a weapon. We've bombed dozens of locations in which nuclear activity was taking place, including the headquarters of the Iran's nuclear authority and the archives of all the knowledge that the Iranians had in the nuclear realm. So although the Iranians still have many scientists that can enrich uranium, at this point, they do not have the capability to sneak out to a nuclear weapon because they cannot build one.
And yet Iran announced, Ambassador, that its nuclear program remains on track. Now, is there an apprehension that Iran may now speed up the process of making that atom bomb, and that threat to Israel remains or may have just magnified after this 12-day war?
It is clear, Gaurav, that as long as this regime exists, they will try to continue to exterminate our state. And I'm very pessimistic that they will change their genocidal approach. However, not only that we have set back their military nuclear program, their ballistic program, but also we have the means and the penetration needed, both in intelligence, but also in terms of capabilities, military capabilities, to remove any additional attempt to sneak out to a nuclear bomb.
And how would you respond to this alleged leaked report from the Pentagon that indicates that the centrifuge was not damaged and that Iran's program, which may have been delayed perhaps a little, but not by several years, as Israel believes at this point of time? Do you buy that report of the Pentagon, the leaked report?
Well, first of all, it's not an official report. It's a leak that is coming from an, unidentified source in the Pentagon. It doesn't necessarily, transmit the view of the American defense establishment. So it's an assessment like anybody else can put out an assessment. I think it's too early to make assessments. We ourselves are doing the PDA and trying to assess exactly what we've been able to achieve. But as I told you before, Garo, the fact that all these elements that I mentioned do not longer exist, the fact that Iran still has enriched uranium or people that can continue working on the nuclear program doesn't mean that they can build a weapon within months. Actually, it's quite ironical because people were saying before we did this attack that Iran actually was not months from a nuclear weapon. So all of a sudden, after we took action, they are. It's quite ridiculous.
Okay. And you must have also heard US President Donald Trump, he lost his cool just as he was on his way to his helicopter when he said he wasn't aware of what, Israel was doing and what Iran were doing. Now, there are reports in Washington, D.C. that Israel wanted to continue targeting Iranian forces, but US forced a ceasefire. Is that a correct reading of the situation? Did Israel want to continue degrading Iran's military and nuclear capabilities? And was Israel forced to accept a ceasefire?
No, quite the contrary, Gaurav. The Iranian regime has reached a ceasefire 1 hour after it entered into force. That's why Israel decided to retaliate. At that point, because President Trump has invested interest in the success of the ceasefire, he convinced Prime Minister Netanyahu to actually get a retaliation that is milder. I think naturally he was concerned that the ceasefire that we have brokered with our agreement as well was about to collapse, and therefore he replied the way he replied. But thankfully, the ceasefire now seems stable.
And is there any guarantor of the ceasefire, or what are the conditions that ceasefire stays in place? And will Iran and Israel directly come into dialogue, or will it be through interlocutors? Could it be United States, Qatar, or any other interlocutor, sir?
Well, as you know, Gaurav, the Iranian Islamic radical regime has refused to engage directly with Israel because they do not recognize our existence or our right to exist, and has sworn to destroy us. So the diplomatic engagement is happening through other parties. It doesn't mean that there cannot be a diplomatic outcome. We certainly hope, and actually it's part of our war goals, to get into a situation in which Iran verifiably commits to get rid of their military nuclear program and their military ballistic program.
So you're still keeping an eye on whatever's happening in Iran, and should they continue with either their ballistic missile program or renew it, or their nuclear program, are you saying that Israel will once again go in and pound Iran? Is that what will happen?
Every time that we will identify an imminent existential threat on our country, believe me, Gaurav, we will not hesitate. We will take action.
There was also this report that seemed to indicate that this meeting that was taking place in Istanbul, several Islamic countries were apprehensive that while right now Iran is the target, the only Islamic country with a nuclear bomb is actually Pakistan, and the West will then go after Pakistan. What is your reading of that situation, sir?
I don't see any significant move in that direction.
But is the Pakistani nuclear bomb a threat to the world? If a potential Iranian bomb is a threat to Israel, is a Pakistani nuclear bomb a threat?
Any government that will call for our destruction and will take steps in order to promote that idea will become naturally a threat to Israel.
Ambassador Ruben Azar, for joining me here on this India Today special broadcast. Many thanks, sir.